Some stories don't end when people walk away. They end when people forget. And this one never did. Time passed. Careers moved forward. New roles replaced old ones. Wang and Shen Yue continued on separate paths, growing, evolving, becoming new versions of themselves in the public eye. Yet somewhere in between all of that progress, this story stayed behind. Quiet, unresolved, waiting. Fans didn't hold on because they expected answers. They held on because something about this connection refused to fade. There was never a final moment to mark the end. No scene that clearly closed the chapter. No words spoken to explain what changed or why it could not continue. And when a story ends without explanation, the mind returns to it again and again, not to reopen wounds, but to understand the feeling it left behind. What fans returned to wasn't drama. It was memory. Small moments that once seemed ordinary began to feel significant in hindsight. The laughter that felt unforced. The comfort that didn't ask for attention. The way two people once existed in the same space without hesitation. Didn't feel staged. Didn't feel exaggerated. Felt familiar. And that familiarity is rare. In an industry built on performance, where emotions are often amplified for effect, this connection felt understated. Almost accidental. As if it existed despite the cameras, not because of them. That is why it stayed with people. Fans weren't chasing confirmation. They weren't demanding explanations. What they were holding on to was a feeling they recognized. A moment of authenticity in a world that rarely allows it to exist unguarded. As the years passed, silence settled more deeply into the story. But silence didn't erase it, preserved it. Because silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It means something mattered enough to be protected. The lack of answers became part of the story itself. Not as a flaw, but as a truth. Some connections cannot survive the weight of attention. Some moments are meant to exist only briefly, without being named. And perhaps that is why fans still return to this chapter. Not because they expect it to continue, but because it reminds them of something real. There is comfort in unfinished stories. They allow us to imagine without being corrected. They let us hold on to feeling without being told we're wrong. And in that space, this story lived on. Not loudly, not insistently, but patiently. Fans grew older. Perspectives changed. But the memory remained. Less intense, more reflective, softer around the edges. No longer a question that demanded answers, but a chapter that deserved acknowledgement. Because not every meaningful connection needs a public ending to be valid. Some stories exist simply to remind us that, at one point, something genuine happened. That two people shared a moment that mattered, even if it couldn't last. This is why fans still can't let go. Not because they refuse to move on, but because moving on doesn't require forgetting. It requires understanding. And perhaps understanding, in this case, means accepting that some stories were never meant to be finished in public. They were meant to be felt, and then remembered. This story never ended, not because it was incomplete, but because it became part of the people who witnessed it. And that is why it still lives on. And perhaps that is the quiet truth behind why this story still resonates. It was never about certainty. It was never about labels or declarations. It was about recognition. People recognized something familiar in the way this connection unfolded. Something fragile, something human. The kind of bond that doesn't survive noise, but lives briefly in calm moments before reality intervenes. As time passed, fans learned to sit with the unanswered questions. Not to solve them, but to accept them. To understand that not every meaningful connection is meant to be carried forward. And not every chapter is meant to be revisited publicly. Some stories change us simply by existing. They remind us that sincerity can appear unexpectedly, that connection doesn't always ask for permanence, and that endings don't always need explanations to be real. And so this story settled into something quieter. No longer a mystery to unravel. No longer a question demanding answers. But a memory. A reminder that, for a moment, something genuine passed through the spotlight, and then chose to leave without saying goodbye. And maybe that's why it stayed. Because the stories that don't shout their endings are often the ones we remember the longest.